Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. I'm going to talk about, I found 9 spooky ghost stories. It's told by military members and veterans, and I wanted to just kind of read through those, and then it sparked the thought of, do you have any similar experiences in your time in service, or even outside your time in service? Love to see it in the comments. So let's jump into it here. Hit the thumbs up. Really appreciate it. And subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel in other ways, consider being a member. I do my best to get back to members in the comments, and let's go on. So thank you so much. All right, so 9 spooky military ghost stories is told by service members and veterans. I found this on military.com. Just came out October 24th, which is fitting because we're in the Halloween season. But this type of stuff is always intriguing anyway, to me anyway. So let's move on. All right, so there's nothing quite as satisfying as a ghost story told well by a storyteller who relishes every creepy detail and the disturbing ending, and an audience who sits in uncomfortable silence, even if for a moment contemplating the possibility of paranormal activity in their midst. The military is chock full of tales of terror, haunting, and things that go bump in the night. It is so full of folks who delight in telling a really good story. Our military.com, which is where I'm reading this from, readers did not disappoint when we asked them to share their spookiest military ghost stories. Here are some of the best spine-tingling, hair-raising ones that they had to offer. All right, so there's 9 of them here, and I'm going to start it off with, this one isn't a ghost story. This is just something that I just remembered as I was reading this. We had a guy who we had to send down. He was on ammo watch, right? So all the mortar rounds got delivered out there, and so we had to send a couple people. So boom, he goes, and he tells us about this dream that he was having, and people were kissing him and all kinds of things. Turns out a coyote had rummaged through all the stuff that was around him and left things around, right? I mean, it had to have been a coyote. And so anyway, so he was having this dream, but the coyote was probably licking his face. So that's pretty creepy. Not a ghost story, but anyway, let's jump into the ghost stories here. So the Vandenberg Vision. I was stationed at Vandenberg Air Base in California in 1971. Most barracks were relics of the World War II era, wooden structures, all that good stuff. There were a few rooms that no one dared to occupy. The security police barracks had one such room. It was said that if a new recruit was assigned to that room, their belongings would mysteriously appear in the hallway after having been on a work shift. Some of those who tried to move into the room claimed to hear strange noises and even felt there were shadowy figures within the room when they stayed more than 10 minutes. Rumors were that someone had died by suicide in the room. All right, so that's number 1. And at the end of this, I'll give you a couple things that in my childhood, it wasn't military, but a couple weird, funky things that the unexplainable, right? So let's move on. Next one, formations at Fort Sill. I was stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I lived in the senior quarters on post, which was about 1 mile from Geronimo's grave and a few others. As I was leaving for work one morning, one of my neighbors from across the street approached me and wanted to know in a very aggressive manner, why do we have soldiers marching through the neighborhood at night? I assured her that no unit was marching through the housing area. She pulled out her phone and showed me a video that made me forget to breathe for a few seconds. She had a recording of soldiers in 2 columns marching toward the road that led to the cemetery. I realized the uniforms were unlike anything I had ever seen outside a museum. I requested that she send me the video, but her husband deleted it and told her to never speak of the incident. He later came to my residence and requested that I forget about the whole thing because he was a first lieutenant trying to get a position on command staff and didn't want the extra attention. All right, next one here. Power from the Great Beyond. I was a KC-135 navigator in the Air Force during the Cold War. One day, we got an alert to report to our aircraft. As we opened the door to the cockpit, The auxiliary power unit started up all by itself. There are several procedures required to start the APU, so this spooked the whole crew. After serving 19 more years, I still have never run across anyone else who had this same experience. Even if the aircraft malfunction, even the aircraft malfunctioner couldn't give me an explanation as to how or why the APU started up all by itself. Next one here is the stagecoach specter. During the 1700s, a stagecoach traveling from Yorktown, Virginia, to Williamsburg, Virginia, was attacked by Native Americans in the middle of the night. It drove across the Fellgates Crossing while on fire. Now it makes the same route in the afterlife and scares the crap out of Marines on patrol. Next one. Let's see. The Apparition at Altus. When I worked on C-141s at Altus Air Force Base in Oklahoma, we had a plane that was rumored to be haunted by an airman who was crushed to death in the T-tail. I pulled in front of the plane at 2 a.m. one morning and it was completely dark. I wondered where the crew chief was because a flight was scheduled for the morning. I sat on the deck reviewing the aircraft forms when I heard the very distinctive sound of combat boots walking from the back of the cargo bay to the front. Thinking I had caught the crew chief sleeping, I switched off my flashlight and stood at the top of the flight deck stairs, listening to every step, waiting for him to get to the front of the plane. When I thought he was a few feet away, I turned on my flashlight and jumped into the cargo bay, ready to say, "Gotcha." There was nobody there, and I felt a cold chill go through me. All right, next one, the ghost of Fort Devens. During World War II, Fort Devens had a German and Italian POWs housed in various parts of the base, including the pre-war 3-story brick building known as Hale Hall. One version of the story says that a wounded Italian POW jumped or fell from a top floor window at Hale Hall and froze to death in a snowdrift at the base of the building. A second version says a German POW hung himself in the upper part of the building. By the 1960s, the building was in use as a training facility for the Army Security Agency. As it housed top security military intelligence materials, it had MPs inside 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on duty. George was reportedly seen various times by MPs, mostly at night on the upper floor. One night, a new MP was on duty and making his rounds on the upper floor. He spotted an individual in a secure area and ordered the intruder to halt. When the intruder continued walking, the MP fired his .45. Although the MP had a clear line of fire, the intruder continued to walk right through a wall. All right, let's see. Next one here is, let's go to the helpful crew chief. I was a crew member on a C-5 based at Dover Air Force Base, Delaware. A crew chief died on the plane in an accident about 10 years before. Different things on the plane kept breaking without being operated or touched. I was outside chatting with the guard and overheard his radio that a new tire was on the way out to the C-5. We were the only C-5 at the base at the time. Our flight engineers and mechanics didn't know we had a flat tire. 5 minutes later, a new tire arrived, and we quickly found our flat tire. To this day, we have no idea who requested the tire or why I heard the call on the security channel when it should have been broadcast on the maintenance channel. That's interesting. All right, here's another one. It's a nighttime encounter. I don't even know how to say this place. Ocracoke. For those that know, right? So I was stationed at Coast Guard Station in North Carolina. A year or so after being transferred, I went back for some duck hunting and stayed with a friend. The house was built in the late 1700s or early 1800s and had a rich history of numerous tales. It was near, the word I can't say, Ocracoke, that Edward Teach was beheaded. Supposedly, the headless body of Blackbeard swam around the ships numerous times. The owners of the house were in the process of raising the lowest level and putting a taller foundation underneath. There was no running water, there were trees in the backyard, and I had to make a midnight call to those trees. While out there, I swore I saw a moving apparition that terrified me. I awoke numerous times through the night, sat bolt upright in bed, and went out the next morning looking for tracks or anything supernatural. I even moved the tablecloth left drying on the clothesline, but I could never again find the apparition. Next one, I think there's two more, and then I'm going to share my own little kind of funny story. Extra training partners. In 1988, I was a volunteer at Fort Frederick State Park, MD, where we did living history reenactments of the French and Indian War. During a nighttime training exercise for fun, we played a war game. The idea was to do tactical movements in the fields and woods around the only original stone fort, the only original stone fort from this period in the U.S. During the night's activities, several of us witnessed figures in colonial uniforms carrying 18th century flintlocks across an open field, heading away from the fort and going toward the Potomac River. No one could identify who these figures were. We discussed possible explanations, and nothing seemed to explain their presence. The only logical explanation was we'd witnessed ghostly apparitions. Last one here. Keep up. Well, this isn't the last one. This is the end of the thing, and I'm just going to share this because I did read it off of military.com, so to give them the plug. Keep up with the best in military entertainment. When you're looking for news and entertainment, think of joining the military or keeping up with the military life and benefits. Military.com has you covered. All right, so here's my own little kind of situation with that type of stuff. We lived in this small little logging town, and lived there for 2 years. And I was in 6th and 7th grade. We ended up moving into a house that was, for some reason, I remember the conversations of the parents, right, being that the rent was extremely cheap, right? It was like unbelievably low rent for this specific house. It was a great house. If I remember right, it had a couple bedrooms downstairs and a couple bedrooms upstairs, living room, kitchen, all that good stuff. So it had plenty of room, and we moved into that house. And from what I remember, there's a few different weird things, and it'll get weirder as we go. I'm going to tell you 4 things that happened in that house. 1, the upstairs was really, really cold. Well, heat rises, so it shouldn't be cold upstairs, or at least, really noticeably different. But in any case, it was always really cold upstairs, and the dog didn't like to go upstairs, and unless the kids were up there. And so that was kind of weird. My mom, I never heard this, but my mom would say that she would hear that the toilet would flush in the middle of the night, and she'd hear that flushing. She would also hear the word no sometimes in the middle of the night. Just no, and that was it. So that's creepy. We would leave, and sometimes when we would come home, we had a picture hanging on the wall, and we had a chair that was kind of at a 45-degree angle in the back, going back into the corner, and a picture on one of the walls. We'd come home, and the picture would be off of the wall and laying face down in front of the chair. So that we'd have to actually kind of jump off the wall to do that instead of falling straight down. One night we woke up and the house was filled with smoke, and everybody rushed down, opened the doors, all of that stuff. We had a pretty good sized wood stove with the metal pipe that goes up and that sleeves in, right? You got the little kind of skinnier side and the thicker side, and they, connect together. And it probably slides on, maybe, for those that know, wood stoves with the pipe, right? This slides in maybe 6 inches or so. It was actually taken off and sat on the wood stove. So it was just, the stove was just smoking into the house, and the piece of the pipe was just sitting next to it. That was pretty creepy. And then the last thing that happened, and this is why we moved from that house, if that wasn't enough, nobody was living upstairs, right? We were, my brother and myself, we had a bedroom downstairs. My mom was in the other room, and then we had these 2 upstairs rooms. We'd go up there and play around and stuff, but we didn't actually live up there. It wasn't our bedroom. My mom had a friend who needed a place to stay. She had a son with her, and so they were moving her and her son upstairs, right? So she packs up all her stuff, whatever, to move over, and we're, they're moving the stuff up the stairs. And as they're moving stuff up the stairs go up and there's a landing, right? And my mom is on the landing at the top of the stairs. She says, I wasn't there, probably 4 feet in or so, but her and her friend are there, and they're, moving boxes and stuff and kind of doing all that. And all of a sudden, my mom, who's been over into the box doing whatever, gets kind of pushed and flung down the stairs. So my mom gets thrown down the stairs by not her friend, by something else that's cold upstairs, saying no, moving smoky things, all that. And then we ended up moving, obviously. So that was my one encounter. Didn't witness every single one of those situations, but was told by my mom or my mom's friend. And then obviously I was witness to a few of those, like the smoky house. That was really a strange one. So anyway, love to see your story if you have any. Pretty creepy stuff. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.